I'm going to talk a little bit about school finances. There are a lot of changes in money in schools, and I don't mean necessarily less money, which is the case. But in the last 3 or 4 years, one of the frustrating things with running a school is that we really never know how much money we're going to have. And many of you will say, well, gosh, we run businesses, we know that all the time. You know, it's about how much money's coming in, how much money's going out. Historically, the funding of schools in the state has been very, very steady and very dependable. When the state legislature makes an appropriation, you can count on it. It's going to be there. And then it goes through some intermediaries who follow that through and push that through to schools. Over the last several years, that money has fluctuated because of some discretionary powers that particular folks have in our state, namely the state superintendent. It's been frustrating for us because when the legislature appropriates funding for schools, it simply goes through a formula and it's pumped out. Over the last few years, more discretion, more power has been given, and it's highly centralized as to when that money comes out and exactly how much. And that fluctuates our budget. So historically, when you run a school district, you knew you're going to have X amount of dollars. So it's pretty easy to set up a budget, your personnel costs, your utility costs, your equipment, material costs, et cetera, and you can build a budget doing that. You know, we can argue whether it's enough or not enough, and that's not really the issue at this point. But we've had to make adjustments in the middle of the year because we're not appropriating the entire amount of money that the legislature gave us. That's a problem. It creates headaches for us. You might remember the term ARA a few years ago, the federal money that came directly to school districts, and that was a huge help. And it was a very large sum of money. Just in Bixby, Oklahoma, it was $1.3 million over a 2-year period. That's a good lump sum, but it was one-time money. So we were able to buy a lot of equipment, a lot of materials. We didn't use it for personnel costs at all because we knew it was going to be one-time money. A lot of school districts used it for personnel costs because they had no other choice, and then they get that cliff, that funding cliff, and when that money ended, they're like, where we're going to come up with to make up this money to hire staff. We were fortunate that we didn't have to do that, but we're like everyone else now. That money is no longer there. So in another 3-4 years, when we used it to buy technology and equipment and materials, and when that stuff starts to wear us out, we're not going to have that sort of funding again to replace them. So it is still a concern for us. When we hit the recession, we were like everyone else. We had to cut back, or we had to watch our money, and our class sizes went up, and they shot up to over an average of 27. So we made a goal as we're starting to regain some of our money and some of our funding to reduce those class sizes. 2 years ago, they were at 27. Last year, we put them down to 26. And our goal this year is reduce them down another whole 1 student per class to 25. And so far, we're pretty good. We've got we have our Board of Education funded education by more money. It's $8 per kid. Don't get me wrong, I appreciate it. I appreciate every dollar we get, but we all know what $8 gets you. A Sonic meal and a cup of coffee.
Hey, Dr. Wood?
Yes, sir.
Per year or per month?
No, that's for the year.
Oh.
Yeah. $8 more. Volatile sources, and as I said, state aid used to be just steady, a rock. You could depend on it. When the legislature appropriated it, you knew you had that money and you knew you were going to get it. Schools are paid monthly, like a lot of folks. It comes out of the state treasury monthly. And but wow, the last 3 or 4 years it's fluctuated, and it's very disheartening when you think you're getting X amount of dollars in a month, you got a payroll ready to go, and it's less. We have to pull it from another source, cut something that month to pay for it. And in the end, by the end of the fiscal year, sometimes we get some of that money back if it's left over from whatever pet project they had, but it doesn't really do us any good. It's good for carryover, but our year's over. Local revenue, volatile sources also. Gross production for the last several years, that's basically the oil and gas industry in Oklahoma. As you know, that's been very volatile. And gross production taxes fund a great deal of the 1017 fund in the state. And the 1017 fund funds a great deal of education. So when oil and gas is pumping through those lines, schools like it. Now, I don't like it either when we go to the gas station and pay higher prices, but it produces more taxes for us. Local revenue, ad valorem taxes. Bixby has been awesome. We're a growing community. Our local tax base is strong, it's healthy, and it has fluctuated. It did fluctuate through the recession, but you'll find our evaluation was one of the most steady in the state of Oklahoma, and it also grew during the recession in value. Our local valuation this year is $347 million. When Tom was high school principal in Bixby, it was about $130 million. So how long have you been retired?
11 years.
About 11 years. I thought about 10 years. It has grown significantly in our community. And that's why you see us being able to build new buildings. Is that valuation, the more valuation, the larger the pool of bond capacity that we have, but you still pay the same rate of property taxes, but there are more of them paying. Without that, we would no way in the world have been able to keep up with growth, have places to put all the kids. Likewise, 10 years ago, we had about 3,200 students. This year, we will top 5,600. There's an incredible amount of growth. Federal money's drying up. If they do not reauthorize IDEA and the Elementary and Secondary Education Act federally this year, these decreases you see on the screen will be even more. This year alone, Title I, which serves reading and math instruction for underprivileged kiddos, Bixby alone, $60,000 less than last year. That's almost 2 teachers, folks. Expected, we don't have our allocation for IDEA yet, but expected to be $100,000 less. And that's 3 teachers. That doesn't mean we don't provide those 3 teachers. We do. It just comes out of our general fund, rather than being traditionally funded by the feds. Next slide. This is state aid. This is what we received over the last, 8 or 9 years, and it's up there. You'll see in 06, 07, we received, how you read that is obviously the year, and then the total allocation from the state, the total local allocation to Bixby schools, and then the weighted membership of the district. And what I mean by weighted is that a second grader, all students is counted as a 1, but a second grader might be a 1.2. A second grader who is also ELL might be a 1.2 plus 4. So you add those weights up, and that gets you a weighted membership. So in 06, 07, our weighted membership was 5,917 kids. So the only kids that are really actually a 1 are 9th and 10th graders in a school district, and they're a 1. Everyone else has some type of weight on them. And that formula has been changed over the years so much. Every year it had, every time it changed, it certainly had a reason, but there's not a lot of rhyme. One would have a hard time figuring it out today. Here our state allocation that we were told we were going to get is $9.5 million. My bet is you can take about 10% off of that. Somehow it'll disappear. So which equates to, we have a weighted ADM of 7,781 students. Is what I'm guessing it'll be for $1,222 per student from the state. So you can see specifically in 07, 08, 08, 09, we were getting more